Okay, so this is the iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh, and love it or hate it, this is a pre-built gaming PC rig. There are so many different types of communities out there that are all about gaming rigs like this one, but you'll find out that there are some people who like to build their gaming rig from scratch, and then there are people like me who just don't have the time and even the money to go out and build a gaming PC from scratch, and that's where these pre-built gaming PCs come into play. So I've had this iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh since December of 2024, and so that's approximately 6 months from today, which is May 2025. Can I just say that the time is just flying by so quickly, and now it's already freaking half of the year through. Anyways, so this gaming PC 6 months later is definitely my favorite desktop computer that I've ever owned in my 30-some years of being on this planet. And so in this video, I'm going to give you my 6-month opinion and review and experience on this iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh. I'll also talk about the design, the technical specs, these cool LED fans, the price versus its capabilities. I'll talk to you about the various games that I played, how I used it in daily computing, also how I used it for content creation. And so after 6 months, there's a lot to love in this computer. However, there is one thing that just absolutely drives me bonkers. And if you want to know what that is, make sure you stay and watch till the very end because it may actually deter you as well. So first, let's talk about who this computer is for. I alluded to this earlier on the intro as to the person who doesn't have the time and even the money to build a gaming PC rig from scratch. And so there's a whole bunch of people out there who do have that time and money to build a really expensive and just a really magnificent gaming computer. I'm just not one of those people. I love tech, I love my computer, I just don't have the bandwidth to actually sit there and dedicate a few $1,000s and maybe half of my life to kind of just getting all of the computer parts together, searching for the perfect equipment, things like that. I am okay with having purchased a pre-built machine like so. With that said, that's exactly who these pre-built gaming rigs are for. So one of the coolest things about this pre-built computer is the fact that you could just go to your nearest Best Buy and you can almost guarantee that this thing is going to be in stock, and you could walk out of Best Buy with this in your hands today. Now, I do want to say that you want to capitalize on any type of trade-in values or any type of Black Friday deals, because I actually purchased this on a Black Friday deal with a laptop trade-in. So the technical specs on paper of this computer are, hold on, the cat wants inside. Okay, the cat's inside now. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so on paper, the technical specs of this machine is actually pretty decent. Again, if you're purchasing this computer, there's going to be some give and take. We have to keep our minds open because of the fact that this computer isn't a very expensive gaming computer in all respects, but it does have some decent hardware inside. Again, so right out of the box, the iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh comes with 8 GB of GPU with the GeForce RTX 4060. So if you're not like super computer savvy and maybe you don't know what I just said, basically the GeForce RTX 4060 is not the top of the line GPU out there, but it's definitely not the worst. You're able to output some really decent quality games on this actual computer based off of that GPU alone. So next, let's talk about the storage. This comes with 1,000 GB or 1 TB. And so if you're not super technical, it's okay. We all kind of start somewhere, but 1,000 GB or 1 TB of storage just means how many things you could store inside of your computer. Be that videos, pictures, games, documents, the list kind of goes on and on and on. But do keep in mind, the larger the video or the game or the program or whatever that you're storing onto your machine, the more storage it takes up inside your actual computer. So think of it like an empty glass. An empty glass is, let's say, 1,000 GB of storage. And as you keep pouring your liquid, your water, your whatever into your cup, your glass is going to eventually get full. And the same concept is going to be said to be true for the storage on this. So next, let's talk about random access memory, or RAM. And the RAM, amongst other things, are essentially going to be the ways and the means and how fast you're able to open up your particular file, your particular program, or even play some of your games. Again, as a budget-friendly, pre-built gaming PC, 32 GB of RAM is actually really good. Don't get me wrong, I know there are other computers with 64 GB of RAM and higher, but I mean, really, for the everyday practical person who's maybe a casual gamer, maybe you're not even gaming at all, you could actually use that RAM to do video editing or other type of rendering type programs. And so the next major technical hardware spec we're going to be talking about is going to be the central processing unit, or the CPU. So the processor is going to be basically how everything gets processed. It's kind of like when your brain brains. The CPU in this is going to be the Intel Core i7. And so again, not the highest and most glamorous technical spec out there, but it's definitely not the worst. It's actually pretty decent. Now, all that to say is the fact that you get all of those things that I just mentioned right out of the box, but there is capability to upgrade the hardware as time goes on. And that's actually going to be one of the more economical and budget-friendly ways of having a decked out gaming PC, is to kind of get a pre-built, a kind of mid-tier gaming machine and then upgrade it slowly. Now, upgrading your computer does require additional research, a little bit more elbow grease. Also, it requires a little bit more knowledge on just kind of the tech savviness of things, because one pull of the wrong wire and things could go really wrong really quick. And you just wanna make sure that if you are purchasing this with the intent to upgrade some of the hardware specs on your own later, make sure you do your research, ask your brother, ask Geek Squad, whatever, to make sure that you're not going to buy something and break your machine. I can tell you that there are going to be limitations to your upgrade, but I can also tell you that if you're on a budget, upgrading your mid-range desktop like this may actually be more cost-effective and economical than buying a super high-end and expensive desktop gaming rig. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention completely was the fact that when you do buy the iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh from, let's say, Best Buy, you actually get a RGB keyboard and a RGB mouse along with the bundle. They're nothing to write home about, and that's probably why I forgot to mention it. The peripherals, the keyboard and the mouse, they're so forgettable that I don't even know where they're at. They're somewhere in my closet somewhere, but I mean, it's cool though. All right, so now that we got the kind of technical spec talk out of the picture, let's go and talk about the actual design. Okay, so right out of the box, when you turn your iBUYPOWER Slate 8 mesh on, you're greeted with these LEDs kind of everywhere. You'll see here that it has 3 fans here in the front, and then also there's going to be 2 fans inside the actual chassis. In comparison, there are other gaming rigs that have way more LEDs and way more flashy, fancy stuff, and that's not to include any other type of LED light strips or any other type of LEDs that you want to add to it. I'm sure if you typed in Google or YouTube or Amazon or something like that and said something along the lines of desktop LED accessories or something like that, you're probably going to get a whole bunch of LEDs that you can kind of outfit your computer with. I don't know if you can tell from my background in my videos, but I definitely love LEDs. Oh boy, I need to increase the wide angleness here. Let's see, is that better? Yeah. Okay, so now that you can actually see me as well as the computer, the profile side of this computer, I mean, it's super basic, right? I mean, like I said, comparing to other machines out there, this doesn't have a lot going on. You got some LED strips there. Again, those are some more LED fans, and then you have your GeForce RTX graphics card that I mentioned at the bottom, but then you kind of just get this whole empty spot here. That is a calling for you to accessorize and customize whatever you want in there. I was even tempted to kind of put this dude in here because of the fact that this tempered glass actually comes right off. So over here on the back end of the side, the left-hand side, you're actually able to open this actual chassis, and you could actually put your hand inside of the actual computer's kind of frame. Now, I don't recommend that you take the glass off and leave it off, especially while the computer is in operation, just because dust is not the friend of a computer. So you kind of want to make sure that you're keeping this nice and clean, and then just trying to limit as much dust that gets into your actual machine and all the hardware. Even though it's basic, and I'll be honest, I'm sometimes envious of the other super fancy, expensive gaming rigs that have like the liquid cooling and all this other stuff. I can say that it is really cool, but I can also tell you that it's also probably really expensive. So now let's actually talk about some of the other physical specs of the actual computer, like all of the ports, for example. In terms of ports, you have pretty much 2 major options. So on top of the actual computer, you have 5 quick ports. You have two USB-A ports, and then you have a headphone port for outputs, as in you're going to be listening to music on your headphones, and then you have a headphone port for inputs, which is going to be for like a microphone. And then the last quick port on top is going to be a USB-C port. That is one of the things that I don't like about this, is because of the fact that in today's age of 2025, I use USB-C for pretty much everything. And so while I appreciate the fact that I have access to two USB-A ports and one USB-C port on the top, I kind of wish there was more USB-C ports than there were USB-A ports. If you're watching this video, that was like the hardest thing to say with all the USB-Cs, USB-As, so on and so forth. If I did a good job, leave a like and comment down below. So in terms of ports in the back of the computer, you actually get 6 USB-A ports, 2 HDMI ports, 3 DP ports, 1 data drop or Ethernet port, a few audio port slots, and then you have the antenna cable ports, which is going to be subjected to how you use it and even if you use it at all. Do keep in mind that, as I said, that you can upgrade the computer after you purchase this. There is plenty of space on the back portion of the computer that you can add additional slots for whatever it is that you're adding. So the design of the computer is actually just really good. There is just one side over here that is just blank because that's where all the motherboard stuff is. But everything else, everything from the mesh to the tempered glass to the fans to just everything, it feels really good. It feels qualitative. And I think I just want to kind of make mention to that because, again, this is a budget PC, but in terms of design and quality, I feel like it's really punching above its weight class because a lot of this feels really good. All right, so now we've spoken about the hardware specs and technical specs. We've spoken about the design and all the LEDs. Now let's actually talk about the performance. Because realistically, if this computer has all these fancy specs and tech and all that stuff, and it doesn't truly perform, then really what is this computer for? Fortunately, this computer really does deliver when it comes down to providing performance. This computer really does a great job at making sure that it never really stutters. So I have two 32-inch Philips monitors, and honestly, one is 4K while the other one is 2K. So most of the time when I'm actually doing any of my media consumption or I'm doing any video editing, I'll actually keep all of my monitor's resolution at 2K setting just because I want to make sure that the resolution on screen A is going to be the same resolution on screen B. In terms of video editing performance, this actual computer does not struggle whatsoever. With 32 gigabytes of RAM with an i7 processor, this computer really just kind of takes everything I do in terms of any type of rendering, any video editing at 4K 60, any type of exporting, all of that while having Netflix playing in the background. Now, I have been experimenting with other types of video editing software. I usually use Wondershare Filmora, but I've actually gotten into using CapCut recently. And then with the Insta360 camera that I have, you actually have to have the dedicated proprietary Insta360 application in Video Editor, which then you import into CapCut or Wondershare Filmora. Regardless of the fact, this computer does not struggle in terms of video editing process. In terms of regular computing, you won't actually have any type of issues when it comes to actually doing your PowerPoints, your Excel sheets, or anything like that because of the fact that with 32 gigabytes of RAM, daily computing tasks with Microsoft Office Suite apps or Google Chrome or any other type of media consumption is actually going to be a walk in the park for this actual machine. If you can actually see around my cat's big head here, you could have YouTube playing on one side, Crunchyroll playing on the other, and then you could even minimize both of these windows and have some Word documents open. You could even be playing some games on this computer with a whole bunch of tasks open, and you're never really going to feel any of the struggle. So if you're like a super multitasker, you could actually have, let's say, your Steam game playing on the left-hand side of your computer. Here we have Horizon Zero Dawn from the Steam clients. And then we have Crunchyroll on the right-hand side playing my favorite and new episode of Fire Force. And then we have our PowerPoint open with a shameless plug to remind you to like and subscribe. And then on the far right-hand side, you then have a YouTube video of my sister making her craft cards. And so Horizon Zero Dawn is by no means an easy game to play. You could actually see that it's running pretty well. This is probably at medium to medium high settings. I'm not actually sure of the settings, but again, I'm not actually playing games on my computer regularly. I actually play games mostly on my Legion Go or my PlayStation 5. So me having the capabilities of playing games on the computer is just an extra luxury. And so here we have a clip of Helldivers 2, and sure, it's not the most graphically intensive game, but anyone who has played this game knows that in certain situations, certain biomes, certain environments, the game can actually get quite chaotic. And so the fact that the computer is able to play this game at medium to high settings and still have Crunchyroll playing on the right-hand side over here, as well as YouTube, as well as my cat's head, you can actually tell that this is a relatively strong computer because it's able to take all of this processing power and just really eat it up. Now, if you're playing a game that has truly less intensive graphics, then you should automatically assume that this computer is actually going to perform really well. I said I'd give you my honest opinion of this computer 6 months later, and so far I've been giving you my honest opinion. Everything seems good because honestly, it's all really good. There is one caveat that I don't like about that computer, and this is probably a Derek thing because of the fact that I don't use my computer and not have earbuds in or headphones in unless it's for like a conference call. And then usually I take off my earbuds or my headphones because I like to hear my surroundings. And so when I don't have my earbuds in or my headphones on, I actually hear the computer just kind of roaring really loudly because the fans are so loud. I don't have one of those fancy decibel machine reader things where you're able to kind of put something up to a device, an engine or whatever, and it gives you how loud the decibels are. You're just going to have to drink the iBUYPOWER juice when I tell you that when the RAM starts to pick up or when you start a process or what have you, then you're gonna find out that you hear the fans on the computer kind of just like roaring, and you eventually become blind to the noise. But it does take some getting used to. And that's probably my only real gripe about this computer is the fact that it has really loud fans, which I guess I can't really fault it because, I mean, realistically, with all that power in 5 or 6 fans or however many fans are inside of the actual computer, what am I going to expect? I'm not going to expect it to be whisper quiet, even though I did. And honestly, it's a small price to pay because if you have your headphones on, you're not really going to hear it anyways. The other tiny gripe that I have about this computer is the fact that on the top portion of the computer, remember when I was talking about the 5 quick ports with the USB-A's and USB-C's? Well, that's the only other gripe I have about this computer is because in 2025, I kind of wish that I had more USB-C options than I had USB-A options. Again, I'm talking exclusively on the top portion of the computer where there are 5 quick ports. All right, so this is a 6-month review, a little bit longer than I expected because a lot of you have asked me how this computer is holding up. And in 2025, with 32 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, an i7 processor with an RTX 4060 graphics card, I would have to say that it's not pushing the envelope for any type of revolutionary hardware or performance, but it is a highly capable pre-built budget gaming computer. If you are in the market for this particular computer and you're not a master PC race elitist, I highly recommend this computer. All right, everybody, I hope you liked this video. If you could, please hit like and subscribe down below. It really helps me out with getting my YouTube channels to the deep dark corners of the YouTube algorithm. And also share it with your friends and family. I'll see you in the next one.